Now, I know you mentioned it on a recent previous reaction to Yuck, about the sort of the feedback leading into
Hmm.
a line or song or chorus and how much you liked it. And I have to say, I totally agree. From I Feel Fine, the first recorded sampling of feedback ever put down on Hot to Vinyl, through the decades, it's always worked for me, and it just does. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Das Audiophiles. Too high, can't come down, losing my head, spinning round and round. Do you feel me now? More on that later. But first, Andy's got a track for the class. Please share.
Are you familiar with a band called sElf?
Don't think so.
Okay. Well, it is stylized small s, capital E, small L, small f. And the song by them that I want you to listen to is a track called Canon.
Okay.
All right. So give that a go and let everybody out there and myself know what you think on the other side.
So I was chuckling to myself because after the first 5 seconds, I kind of knew what this song would be. It doesn't disappoint. It's fun, I know, but it's got all the sort of the elements in there. Superfluous, distorted hiss that comes and goes. You've got that picking bit with that sort of disconnected vocals as well. And you've got the sort of grungy, umphy, push and pull, start, stop, dun, 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 and then the squeal of the feedback into the bigger chorus. And then I knew it would kick out again with like a dum, 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 dum sort of bass. Yeah, it's all good fun. Yeah, I'm enjoying this actually. It's fun.
Frustrations to the ground. They wait in the wings for you to fall. Can't you make dust of them all? unwanted noise. Loose cannon. Remember all those you destroyed. When fire meets powder, the strongest cower, half-heart, underhand. When fire drowns water, it spreads it farther out of my hands.
Yeah, this is a fun song. And nothing particularly sort of groundbreaking or new, but no, really cool. I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. It's like hearing an old favourite again. Um, Obviously, they owe a lot to the construction of this song, the dynamics to Pixies. Bore myself to death, mention them all the time. Loud, quiet, loud in this case. And then the overall tone of the song, Nirvana, obviously. Um, and there you got it. But yeah, really enjoyable and had all the little sort of tricks and bits. Particularly like the sort of hum along part with that sort of weird, really nice. Obviously, I can't mimic it, so I won't bother trying anymore. Yeah, I didn't really catch the lyrics, to be fair. So I was just listening to what's going on. I enjoyed the drummer. He was belting without trying to show off. It just had a lot of energy to it, and obviously the guitars and bass. Yeah, all cool. Let's get back to Andy and find out a bit more about the song.
All right, so you're back. And
Yeah.
what say you of this tune?
It's funny because the first thing when you said the title of the song's Canon, made me think of two things. One, there was a TV series in the 70s called Canon. And I only remember the title sequence. I don't remember actually watching it, but the character was Frank Cannon, and he was a private detective or a cop, and he was about 25 stone. It was ridiculous. It was fucking huge, size of a house. I don't know why, but I always remember that. And the other thing it made me think of is Cannonball, that iconic 90s track by the Breeders. Anyway, so the track starts, and as Hot Chocolate didn't sing, it started with a hiss. Thank you. Quite pleased with that one. Yeah, there's some disembodied static that greets us for about 10 seconds before a simple guitar comes in, and the hiss disappears as quickly as a TV reality celebrity, and when the vocals start. There's a second vocal track on top as well, which gives it that light, sort of slight disconcerting feel to it, which I quite like. And as he sings the lyrics, he says the word noise, the hooded hiss reappears. But then it shoots off again with a sort of zip that sounds like it's on an electric scooter, the way it goes. And at this point, I have no doubt that it will return. The gentle drums sort of kick in, and it's that classic and then into the bit. There were a couple of lines from singer, and then we're treated to that feedback squeal segue into the chorus. Now I know you mentioned it on a recent previous reaction to Yuck, about the sort of the feedback leading into a line or song or chorus, and how much you liked it. And I have to say, I totally agree. From I Feel Fine, the first recorded sampling of feedback ever put down on hot vinyl, through the decades, it's always worked for me, and it just does. I remember seeing Lou Reed live, where he did about 12 minutes of feedback, and it was fucking brilliant. I don't know why, but it was. So yeah, I loved it as well, and it's a great touch. And chorus has a nice stop-start with heavily distorted guitars, and then it kind of leads out with a chugging bass. And at this point, I think I stopped it around about here. this has all the elements of your grunge bingo card, and you tick the elements off as you go along, and it is predictable. And it did make me smile when I started hearing this, because I figured I kind of know how this song's going to go.
Mhm.
However, this is me looking back on it from today's viewpoint. You know, I imagine, I hope, this is grunge peak, sort of 90 to 93-ish, or 94 up to Kurt's death. And there were 1,001 songs like this around then. And I think I've talked about this before, but it's just worth mentioning that at that time, because you were a lot younger than me then, it was this musical gold rush where bands stroke record executives thought that distorted guitars were the answer to everything, and they would carry the money in sonic wheelbarrows to their tills and fill their pockets. And it got so bloated, and it then unfortunately led into years of Blink 182 et al, hideous. And at the time, I got so fed up with it, I almost developed an anaphylactic reaction to this sort of, the calculated pastiche of that early 90s sound, which really was genuinely exciting at that time for a short period. Nirvana refined it, but I don't think you'll ever match that early sort of tranche of Mudhoney and people like that came out to its Sub Pop. It was fucking amazing. So, admittedly, almost all of the songs that I'm mentioning were of a far less quality than this. And enough time has passed that I did find myself genuinely enjoying this and actually having a lot of fun listening to it. I was chuckling away, but I really liked it. And despite myself and my headspace, as well, that's what we mentioned earlier would say. Yeah, and I really like actually in the chorus, the bass action. I sort of noticed that more, which I would not have done in the 90s, the way it underpinned it all. It's really, really cool. So back to the song. I like some of the touches, and thinking about it now, I mean, I think it must have occurred to me then as well. But things like the slight off key notes, or the sort of slightly, would it be flat rather than sharp bits to give leading into the feedback? It just gives that off tilter, which is really, really not off kilter, sorry, which is really nice. And as expected, there's loads of dynamics in this. Note to self here: do not mention Pixies or Nirvana. Right, okay. So I won't.
Well, you've already mentioned Nirvana a couple times.
I can't help myself.
You might as well say the Pixies part out loud.
Yeah. So these stop-start bits are punctuated by the sort of low growls and the high squeals that you always get. And those bits, always mentally, I picture skateboarders. And as they come to the end of their bit and they sort of hand plant or do whatever at the top of the pipe, they sort of grab their board. It's that little trill at the end, a little extra to the accent to their trick, and that's the top of the the grungy bit, and that's what it. And of course, it's of that time, as well, with the skater action in it, when it's the first time that it became acceptable to wear beanies, and things like that. So yeah, fun time. And then at 2 minutes 15 ish, I write it down, but I don't know how accurate I was. It's either 2:15 or 2:30. I've written both numbers down. I don't know why. There's nothing next to those numbers, so I'm thinking it is this. But there's this odd little section where it goes this like funny little walkabout, and the guitarist is doing a couple of notes there, and it just sounds like this little duck wandering around, and it put me in mind of like a bit. Sometimes McCartney does this in Wing songs, where he just goes on a bit of a walkabout, during the song, and it's like that. It was strange. I won't say I disliked it or liked it. It was just odd. But then it led to my favourite part. So then there's a little sort of very mini culmination, and then there's that effect, and I do not know what it is, but the guitars sound like they're humming to the tune. They're like, and it's through whatever pedals and whatever the name is. I don't know, but in my mind, they're humming now, and there's more than there is really in reality. But it sounds like there's a group of them humming. And what it does is, despite all this lovely stop, start, high, low bits, it actually gives a little bit of extra stretch and fills out the sort of sonic layer of the song as well. And it's a really nice bit to it. And that was my favorite bit. Then there's cue, there's like pounding drums, and it leads to a nice quiet bit with a lazy strumming guitar. Tick on the bingo card again. Loved it. And then the chorus for the last time, and then it kind of fizzles out like a mid-range fireworks, just at the end. Not too flashy, just goes. This made me think about a lot of things. You give me sort of grunge-ish type songs before, and I've had similar thoughts, but this was sort of probably this is more classic. You can nail it down almost as to what it was. The tone and the structure, the construction of this song owes a lot to those two aforementioned bands that I will not mention, Pixies and Nirvana. And but it had really nice guitars, really nice energy. It was executed very, very well. Yeah. I enjoyed the drums. He was very muscular without being over the top. I enjoyed the drums and the bass more as the song progressed, actually. So this was lots of fun. It was like an old friend revisiting. You're glad they're not staying with you, but it's nice to see them. And I surprised myself how much I enjoyed it. I really did.
Good. I'm glad that you liked it. And
please do not tell me this is from like 2015, because I will then do my nut.
No, but if it was, they would have done an excellent job at really tapping into that sound of the time for sure.
Yeah.
No, this actually just missed your little hypothetical cutoff that you had implied. It is 1995 is when this came out. Yeah. But yes, they are an American alternative pop rock band from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The band is led by Matt Mahaffey and currently consists of Chris James on keyboards, piano, samplers, guitar, and backing vocals, Mac Burris on bass guitar, keyboards, horns, and backing vocals, and Jason Rawlings on drums. Past members included Matt's brother, Mike Mahaffey, who is a lead guitarist, keyboardist, and he provided vocals, and Tim Nobles on bass guitar. They were, the Mahaffeys started the band. Tim Nobles was part of the original lineup that is featured on this album because this is their debut album. Mahaffey cites Electric Light Orchestra, Prince, and the Pixies as some of his biggest musical influences. As their album, what's that?
That's good because I absolutely adore ELO.
Yes,
and I think I've heard of Pixies somewhere.
Yes. And I know you've quoted Prince before in some of your little lyric.
I love Prince.
So yeah, of course.
That's a good checklist.
Yeah, it is. And it's a bit diverse too, right? So that's cool. And I think that is almost emblematic of what their sound has progressed to throughout their existence. Because this is, like I said, off their first album, their sound developed and changed, and they started experimenting with different stuff as they grew out of what you would kind of underscored in your synopsis, which this is very much a sound that had its time in the light, not has its time in the light. Which isn't to say it's not awesome to go back and check this stuff out. Hell, we wouldn't be in this situation right now if it wasn't fun to do that. But I think we both know that if this came out now, it wouldn't land like it would have if it came out in 1994 or 5, somewhere around there, right? So, really interesting, influential, samplings there with these artists that they've listed. They began with founders, as I alluded to earlier, the brothers Matt and Mike Mahaffey, and they were recording songs in their childhood home in the early 1990s, and then following brief stints in other groups. And to date, they've now released 7 studio albums. The band's debut album, Subliminal Plastic Motives, which is what this song is off of, was released in 1995, as I stated earlier, on Sponge Bath Records, a label that the Mahaffeys helped found. So as you can imagine, this album was not only all the songs written by these guys, the whole thing was produced by them as well, and sort of their first go on what has now become a pretty big cult classic hit, this album, with fans of sort of the Loud Quiet Loud scene of the early 90s and stuff like that. So and knowing how much you love the Pixies and kind of respect and revere Nirvana and Kurt Cobain for what they did, I thought this would check some boxes for you, and not just the bingo card boxes. So because this has grown in popularity and become kind of this cult classic, critical response was really positive, with Mahaffey receiving praise for his cut and paste, eclectic take on rock music and garnering comparisons to artists like Beck and the Beastie Boys. Many of sElf's fans hold this album in high regard, as most of the songs on it are now fan favorites. And while the album featured a hearty dose of what could best be described as modern rock songs, elements such as hip-hop beats, jazzy piano, dense, complex arrangements, and triggers and samples were dispersed throughout, hinting at Mahaffey's versatility as a composer and sElf's future in musical direction. So this is kind of harkens back to what I was just talking about a moment ago, where they kind of evolve their sound kind of album to album. AllMusic scored this album a 4 out of 5. Your beloved Pitchfork gave it an 8 out of 10, and Album of the Year scored it an 80%. So we are going to jump in the lyrics before I kind of let you know what I think they're about. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but there is, at the same time, as obvious as I think it is, there aren't any write-ups about what the song is about. So it's like, I guess it's open for interpretation. But the lyrics are: Cannon, are you unnecessary noise? Cannon, firing on all of your toys. Cannon, thinks we're the same, but we are. Oh, Cannon, destiny's towing your car. When fire meets powder, you take your cover. I fly over, and when fire drowns water, it spreads it farther out of my hands. Asking advice from all the clowns, oh, Cannon, take your frustrations to the ground. Cannon, they wait in the wings for you to fall. Cannon, can't you make dust of them all? When fire meets powder, you take cover. I fly under, and when fire drowns water, don't even bother, out of my hands. In some untimely way, the world asked us to leave. Suddenly, we're afraid. No longer can we stay. The thread of life was strung to each and every one. I knew it all along. Your call to arms was wrong. Cannon, are you unwanted? Are you just unwanted noise? Loose cannon, remember all those you've destroyed. When fire meets powder, the strongest cower. Half heart, underhand. When fire drowns water, it spreads farther out of my hands. So I personally think this is sort of him having a conversation with himself about his temper, and that he's given his temper the moniker of Cannon. And he talks about how it's destructive and how it destroys his toys. I think is kind of a silly way of saying the things that he cares about. His most prized things is what he's wiping out when he lets his temper take over and fuel his rage. And he's kind of saying, hey, when this happens, take cover. So yeah, I think that's what it's about. Anyway, that's my guess. So best as I can figure it out. But yeah, really cool song, very of its time, but very of a time that you and I both have like a spot for in our hearts. So I thought, oh, if he doesn't know this, I think he should. Because this is some of the good, like, outside of the big American bands that were doing this that everyone knows about, there were all these other bands that were doing really good shit too. They just didn't get to be the faces of the movement or whatever. But I think this song is just as good of or just as emblematic of that genre as any of the ones that came from the big names. You might not like it as much or whatever, but I think it totally fits the bill, and I just think it's charming and quirky and kind of fun. So yeah, that's why I brought it to the table.
Yeah, I think the mark of a song really is what it makes you feel, and this one made me smile.
Yeah, good. And I think knowing about Mahaffey and the way he writes music and approaches it, just hearing that would probably please him, because he's a bit of a quirky guy himself and likes to have fun through music. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Everybody out there in the listening audience, let us know what you think of sElf, if they remind you of anything, if they definitely ticked that early to mid 90s box like it did for John and I. If you have any other songs you'd like to offer up, our Fridays are always open for that, and we're collating a list of all the awesome offerings you guys have put forth, and we will be addressing those each and every Friday here on the channel. all that out of the way, if you're new here, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. We're looking to grow the channel. We can't do that without you guys. All the subs, we appreciate what you've done. All the potential subs, please think about joining the party. We really love to have you here. Hopefully, John and I will catch all of y'all on the next episode of the Audiophiles. See you guys.